What's going on, world? And welcome to Clearing the Wreckage. I'm your voice and your host, Kareem A. Rashid. And once again, I don't know what you got going on. You could be getting on the toilet, or you could be getting off the toilet. Hell, for all I know, you could be wiping your tushy. But all I know is that I'm ready. And so I hope that you're ready to clear the wreckage. Yes, indeed. What's going on with you today, my Wreckage Clearers? What's going on with you today, my peeps? We are together in the coffee shop. You're sitting down next to me. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Man, it's been a week since I seen you. You're like, yeah, Kareem, man, please catch me up. I know you've been telling the story. You've been sharing your experience with me. And I am just eager to know a little bit more. You know, I know that last week we talked about checking motives and how that keeps us honest with ourselves and it keeps us honest with other people. It keeps us practicing integrity that, hey, I'm doing this even when people aren't around. You know, I'm throwing my trash in the trash can. Simple, grown, adult stuff that we should be doing as adults, right? Because we are no longer kids. And the reason and part of the purpose of this podcast is to share with you my experience on how I have been learning to clear the wreckage and, in layman's terms, grow up. That is that. And so I'm sharing this experience with you so that we both can grow and develop and that we can become butterflies. Yes. And so that we can go around and we can help other people in our journey. This is about togetherness. This is about oneness. This is about us walking hand in hand. So as we talked about, hey, you know what? I have to learn how to be honest and I have to learn how to be exact and accurate. That's what the word rigorous means. And now I have to learn how to look at myself before I just start doing something, before I just, go on autopilot, before I just go on robotic, in my robotic ways, my zombie ways that I've been living all my life. I'm just doing stuff. Don't even know why I'm doing it. Let me check. Let me ask. Why am I doing this? So it is important. It's a vital step in the process of clearing the wreckage, in the process of personal growth and development. And there is also a step inside of all of this that we need to bring forth today and discuss. So I'm glad you got your coffee. I got mine. And that step that we need to discuss is willingness, or shall we say becoming willing. Now, after I became aware and I acknowledged and I admitted and I accepted, you remember those episodes about the 4 A's, right? Now, am I willing to actually take the necessary steps to produce growth, to produce change? Am I willing to accept my reality? So I was at that place of acceptance. I saw my reality, which was, oh my goodness, I became aware that, man, I am this type of person. Yes, I am an alcoholic. I became aware of that. I had to acknowledge that. Then I admitted it. And then I accepted it. Okay, this is the place that I am at. Now, am I willing to do whatever it takes? I accept that reality, but now, am I willing to do whatever it takes to get out of this reality and create a new one and create a better life and create one toward recovery, toward self-improvement, toward growth and development? Well, it entails honesty, because when I accepted that, I had to get real with myself. Am I willing now? Am I really willing? So willingness is vital to personal growth and development and recovery because it represents a conscious choice to accept that reality, embrace discomfort, and then take action. Instead of resisting difficult circumstances, a willing mindset actually fosters openness, adaptability, and resilience, which are essential for meaningful change. So for me to become willing, I had to realize that, man, this is going to be different this time. You remember the story. I told you the story. I'm sharing it with you every single week. Let me remind you. You know where I was at that point in my life. At that time in my life, I had kept doing the same thing over and over. I kept going back to the old behavior, and I wasn't willing. I was not willing to look at myself. I was not willing to change. I was not even willing to become aware, to acknowledge, to admit, or accept my current reality at that time in my life. You know that. We've discussed that. So then I got to the place where I was able to, put those 4 A's into action. Now am I willing to do whatever it takes, right, to stay sober and clean this time around? Am I willing to actually recover? So in order for me to recover, I had to realize, in order for me to grow, that I must be willing from here on out. What am I going to do different this time? I have another chance at life. I have another chance at this. What am I going to do this time to stay sober, to stay clean, and to actually truly recover from my addiction? Well, I remember last time I was not willing to embrace discomfort. I was not willing to even face myself. I wasn't. I was continually doing the same thing. I was not willing to admit or accept my reality. So once I became aware is when a little bit of that willingness came in, then a little bit more once I acknowledged, then a little bit more once I admitted it, and then a little bit more once I was able to accept myself and my reality. Then now I know the truth. And that is why it is said, and it was said by a very wise person, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So now, what are you going to do with the truth? And that was the spot that I was in. That was the place that I was in. So I ask you, what are you going to do with the truth now that you know the truth about yourself? If you have took the time to become aware, acknowledge, admit, and accept, and you see yourself face to face now, what are you going to do? Are you willing to do the necessary work within? And so I had to ask myself those questions. Now, am I willing to actually try the support group out that my therapist has suggested? She said, why don't you try a different group? Why don't you? And you guys know the story because I've shared with you that, yes, I went to that group. But am I willing to ask for help? Am I willing to do whatever it takes to grow, to recover, to become better, to heal? And I ask you the same question. Are you willing? That, my friends, is the question at hand. Right? Because there are times in our lives that people may be telling us things that we are doing that are hurtful to ourselves. It may be hurtful to others. It may be even hurtful to them. They may bring something to your attention. Hey, this hurt me. This kind of behavior needs to stop. But this behavior will continue if we are not willing to even be silent for a moment. Remember, we discussed silence brings about awareness. Because in my case, people were telling me over and over and over again. You guys know this. We've talked about it, right? But I just continue to not stop, not have a moment of silence, just reach for the bottle, and everything will be okay, Kareem. Remember the analogy of the baby. I was a baby. Yep, I'm in pain. And the only way I can express myself is by yelling and screaming, because I can't really express my emotions. I never learned how to. And the only solution that I know to do is reach for the bottle, reach for a drug, reach for sex, reach for whatever pleasure was there to help me escape, to help me feel better. But once we are willing is when we will step out of our comfort zone. Because to me, remember, that was truly comfort. Remember episode 27? We discussed that. The great thing about when I walked into those rooms, they told me exactly how to do it. Honesty, open-minded, and willingness. That is how to do it. And I had to go, wow, am I willing to be honest with myself? Was I willing to even be willing? See, sometimes, let me just throw something out there real quick, just sometimes for you. Sometimes you got to pray to be willing. You got to pray just to be willing. You know, even in that moment that I had with myself, I had to take some time to pray to be willing. Remember how I told you I used to get in that closet? This is the time when I was in that closet, I was asking for the drive, for the desire to grow in me to want to not reach for the substance, but to reach for help. That is what I was asking for. Willingness has to be the foundation, right? Upon which I stand. Willingness in recovery had to be the foundation upon which that I stood on in order to build lasting sobriety and emotional healing. Willingness is more of a proactive choice, right? So willingness happens before the action. So like I said, sometimes you may even have to pray to be willing. Oh, man, you know what? I don't feel like listening to this person right now. I don't care what they got to tell me. I don't want to listen to them. Well, maybe you need to pray to be willing to listen. Willingness is what allowed me to seek and fully engage, or should I say fully immerse myself into the recovery process. Recovery cannot begin without the willingness to accept help. Personal growth cannot begin or commence either if you're not willing to take time to look inside so that the wreckage can begin, keyword, begin to clear. As I state with you every episode before I leave you, what do I say? Take some time to look inside so that the wreckage can begin to clear. Begin is the key word. Commencement is the key word. It cannot happen. Recovery, personal growth cannot begin if you're not willing to take the time to look inside. And that is when stuff will begin to appear, you will become aware of it, and then you are able to then recognize what is inside of you that is stopping you from growth. Because until then, you'll remain the same. You'll still be the same selfish person you was yesterday, still hurting people, still cheating, still lying, still being manipulative, still being entitled, still being the problem. But let me ask you a question. Do you see everyone else as the problem? Do you see everyone else and then you blame them for your problems, for your attitude, for your discomfort, for your selfish acts? Do you? Do you say things like, well, you know, if you didn't do that, I would not have done this. Well, if you weren't screaming at me or calling me names, then I would not have reacted in this way. What's up, kid? I see you. Grow up. Take responsibility for your own actions. What I am sharing with you, though, is that was me. I am sharing with you my exact experience. That is exactly what I did. Everyone else was the problem. That is why I drank. That is why I got high, because of you. Nope, there's nothing selfish inside of me. It has nothing to do with me. It's all you. Because of your rudeness, because of how I was raised, because you left me, because you said this, because you did that, because of the trauma, because of my coworkers, because of my job. Shall I continue? The list goes on and on. That was me. This is what I said over and over again. And then because of that, I reached for the bottle. I reached for whatever gave me comfort and ease. Because yes, you are the problem. You're the reason I'm in a situation I am in. Have you ever said that to somebody? Man, I'm only here because you. I'm only in this situation because. That's how we are. That is how we are until we become willing. Because the willingness is a choice. It's a proactive choice that, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm willing to go ahead and look at myself. You know what? Maybe it is me. Maybe I'm the one that needs to apologize. Maybe I'm the one that needs to right my wrongs. Maybe I'm the one that is at fault here. But I was not thinking like that at all. And I didn't even give myself time to think like that. That is why I reiterate to you over and over again after every episode to take the time. That's the key. Take the time to look inside. Yes. Are you willing to answer that question? Remember the question I asked you, is everyone else the problem? Are you willing to answer that question? Also, as you know, I was not willing to sit with any discomfort. I was not willing to sit there in pain or experience any fear or any painful emotions at all. But the great thing is, once I became willing, is when I was able to sit with the discomfort instead of fighting it or escaping back into old, harmful behaviors. Becoming willing or having the willingness made me receptive to the program of recovery and guidance from my therapist, my sponsor, which gave me more internal motivation. It produced more of a motivation inside of me that led to a greater commitment and long-term success. And as I became more willing to change, I started learning how to be honest, stop lying so much. I started learning how to open myself up to these new ideas and these new perspectives. So you may say, well, Kareem, why do I feel stuck? Why can't I seem to change? Why can't I seem to grow? Or maybe you're not even asking that question because maybe you're not even at the place yet of willingness. Maybe you listen to this podcast, but you haven't put any of it into action. I hope that is not you, because you are listening to this because you are a wreckage clearer. You're listening to me every single week because you want to grow. You want to be different. There is something inside of you that wants something new and a new idea, a new perspective, and you want to become more receptive to that. You want to become willing. That is why you are here. And I know that about you, and that is why I appreciate you listening to me every single week. So you ask me, why can't I seem to change? Well, there are here's some tips that you can do to actually produce willingness. You can practice being present. Now, so we talked about all these things. So go back to those episodes where we talked about this stuff. So regular mindfulness, you can practice mindfulness. That's just practicing being present. That's just having some time to look inside, self-reflection, recognize willful or resistant patterns about yourself, and then you can consciously shift toward a more willing attitude. You can even start with willing to be willing. So I've already told you, you can pray about, man, please grant me the willingness to be willing. Because sometimes change may feel too daunting. Sometimes change may may just be completely fearful for us. And I get it. I totally get it. Remember, I don't remember what episode it was, but remember how I told you, I think it was episode 33 about acknowledging and admitting. Remember how I told you that I was afraid of the outcome? It's like, yeah, I might be willing to change, but I really don't know the outcome because, see, I'm used to what this does for me, per se, alcohol or drugs or sex or those things that I was reaching for, right? I know what this does for me, but without that, I don't really know what's going to happen. Maybe you're at that place. Maybe you've been in a relationship forever and you have completely lost yourself in that person. But you know that, man, something has to give. And I've been blaming this person for the way that I feel on the inside so long, but it has nothing to do with them. It is all me. Well, what are you going to do about it? Are you willing now to take the necessary steps to grow, to work on yourself? So you may have to sit with that for a minute. You may have to look at yourself. That's all that we're talking about today. The willingness to be able to look at yourself. The willingness to be able to take the time to look inside so that the wreckage can begin to clear. You need willingness to be able to even do that. And that is why we are sharing that today. That is why I am sharing that with you today. Because I want you to get ready you got to be willing. You got to have a sense of readiness, a sense of eagerness, a sense of motivation, a sense of desire. And it's almost more than desire because the desire was in me. Remember, we talked about it. The desire was in me to not drink or use drugs anymore. I mean, I had this little thing in me going, oh, I shouldn't do this. Oh, I shouldn't do that. But it wasn't strong enough. It wasn't willingness. So willingness is is different. It's stronger. It's on a different level. It has more horsepower than that little car that you're driving. Has a whole lot more horsepower. It's going to produce change. That willingness is not only going to produce change for a moment, it's going to produce lasting change because you stay willing and you get more eager and more motivated when you see the change and the growth happening inside of you. So when I started seeing the change and the growth happening inside of me, when I was like, oh my God, I'm learning how to be honest. This is really cool. It's strange, but it's cool. Why was it strange, Kareem? Well, I lied all my life. It rolled off my tongue. So this is a new idea. This is a new behavior for me. But I'm willing. So that willingness produces the belief. Because once I'm able to actually have a victory of being honest with someone or being honest with myself, then I'm like, oh, I can do this. That is what willingness produces in you. Willingness produces a action. Willingness produces motivation. Willingness also produces acceptance and openness. And willingness also produces a growth mindset. So, as I said to you earlier, willingness involves accepting your current situation. So for me, that was my situation. That was my reality. I had to accept it. I had to accept everything that came with it. The uncomfortable emotions, the pain, all of that. Stop fighting it and then learn to receive. And willingness helps me to receive the new ideas and the new experiences that came with it. Okay, you know what? I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk to this recovery room. I don't care what it takes because now I am willing, right? I am motivated, right? I am willing to take action. There is something in our program and our literature that talks about in the beginning, that talks about how it actually does work. And in there, It says if you want what we have, you have to be willing to go to any lengths to get it. You have to be willing. So if you see me right now and you want what I have, you have to be willing to go to any length to get it. If you see some basketball player that you admire and you're on the basketball court every day and you're like, man, I want to be like this person, then you got to be willing to go to any length to get it. I bet you'll go to any length to get something off of Amazon that you want. So how about for your own personal growth and development, for your own recovery, for your own healing, to take the necessary steps? To take the necessary steps. So being willing is closely tied to your intrinsic motivation, right? Reflecting a genuine desire and commitment to take the necessary steps for change. Even in recovery, this can be moving beyond desperation. We talked about the gift of desperation to act from a place of hope. So that willingness, like I said, it produces a belief. It produces a hope inside of you. And then having to take the action. Willingness is not a passive feeling, but it is an active choice to engage in that process of change, right? I immerse myself in that process of recovery. Okay, you know what? I'm going to get my behind up, and I don't even care about catching the bus. I'm just going to walk to this place, and I'm just going to be there for as long as I need to be there in order to recover. Then 3 weeks in, I'm sharing the story with you, 3 weeks in of being in that place, I was like, I became willing to get help. I sat in that meeting place for 3 weeks and listened to everybody, and then something clicked inside of me. You know what? You won't be able to do this on your own. You will not be able to do this time around on your own like you did last time. Even though last time you had help, you were going to church and you were going to a different recovery, you had help, but you really need to get some actual help this time. If you're going to immerse yourself in this program, you have been here for 3 weeks, Kareem. Are you willing to do more of the work that it takes to produce change and growth in you? Or are you just going to come to these places and just sit here and listen to people and not do anything? So I knew for myself that community was important. Yes, community is important. I need someone by my side to help guide me through this program of recovery. And so I asked someone to help me. I asked this guy, let me tell you, this is how you know I was willing to go to any lengths to recover. I was willing to go to any lengths for my own personal growth and development. I asked this gentleman who looks nothing like me, different skin color. Let me just throw that out there, by the way. Somebody from Texas, country, very much older than me, but I wanted what he had. So, because I went to this place and I listened to him for those 3 weeks. He was the main person that I heard. I said, when he opened his mouth, I mean, my ears went up like a freaking bloodhound. I was like, oh, he's speaking. He's speaking. Man, whenever he speaks, I need to listen. And so I was willing to even do that. I was willing to go outside of my comfort zone. The comfortable thing would be, I'm not going to ask him for his help. Look at this guy. He's like 66 years old. I mean, what do you have in common with him? You don't have anything in common with them. Shouldn't you be looking for what's similar? Somebody similar to help you? No, because there was a certain willingness that was inside of me that knew, man, hey, man, I want what this guy has. And I'm going to go to any lengths to get it. I'm finna ask him. And you know what I did after that meeting? I walked right up to him. I said, hey, man, can you be my sponsor? And he was like, wow, that was very humble of you just to come up and ask me. And he said, well, let's get some coffee and talk about it. And then he became the person to help me. And whatever he told me to do, or suggested, I should say, I was willing to do. Because I knew that this man has been successful in his recovery. So why not? If he suggests something for me to do, why not? I can see it. I can see what this change or what this willingness to has produced in him. His willingness has produced long-term recovery, long-term sobriety, long-term success, long-term personal growth, long-term development and maturity in his walk, in his journey, in his life. I said, man, I want what this guy has. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And with that, willingness develops that growth mindset. So instead of viewing setbacks as failures, a willing person with a growth mindset sees them as an opportunity for learning and development. This type of resilience helps me push through adversity. That type of resilience will help you push through any adversity that comes your way. Right? So that's all I have for you today. I don't have much more to say about willingness. I think next week we're going to talk about openness or open-mindedness, because again, when I walked in those rooms, they told me how to do it, and I want to share that experience with you, because that is how I began, folks, and on clearing the wreckage and learning how to clear the wreckage, and still to this day clearing the wreckage in my life. It is time for you to ask for willingness. It is time for you to be willing to look at yourself, to take responsibility for your own actions like an adult does. Kids blame everyone else for their problems, for their circumstances. We are no longer kids. We are adults. It is time to grow up. It is time to develop maturely. It is time to, if you are like me, recover and clear the wreckage. And you have to be willing to do so. And willingness produces, as I stated earlier, long-term success, long-term and lifelong personal growth and development. Again, as I always leave you, take some time to look inside so that the wreckage can begin to clear. Peace.